Hello, Sofa Squad, and welcome back to the damn sofa. That's the sofa with my little shady sidekick, Mr. Rascally Roscoe over there. And my name's Paul. Now remember, if you're seeing this channel right now, you're probably watching the podcast. Well, you are, not probably, you are watching the podcast version of it. I have two other channels. If you want like deeper dive, story times, that kind of thing, go over to my other channel, the main channel, Reporting Live from My Sofa. I'll put a little thing up here of it. And I also have my movie review channel. I'll put a thing of it up here. Those links are in the description below. This channel is more laid back, less edited. We're just kind of going over news items, things like that, commentary, whatnot. And on the today we're going to be talking about more Barry Morphew stuff. Barry Morphew stuff. What I'm going to talk about is just some of the latest little tidbits that I've been watching, his latest hearing that they had, and offer some commentary and thoughts on it, because this seems to be taking a different turn. It's not too often that cases seem to do stuff that has me going, ooh, how's this going to pan out? But this one so far seems to be doing that. Now, how we're going to do this, the habit that we're getting in over at this channel, is I have my computer over here to the side, off in the cut, with some notes on it, things of that nature. So I'm going to be referring to that, all that kind of stuff. Now, specifically for this video, what we're going to do is we're going to be looking at Lauren Scharf's coverage of the hearing that she went to for Barry Morphew. I'm going to put her link to her Twitter down below. If you're following this case and you're not following her, you need to be. She's there, live action, live tweeting, all that kind of stuff. And I'm going to put the tweets that we're referring to up in the video as you watch them or whatever. So there's that, and I'm going to just offer some of my commentary and thoughts on it as we go along. So let me just do this. Let me pull up the first tweet that we're going to read through and just, read through it. Okay, so the first one, pardon me again, Lauren Scharf. Barry Morphew defense says the prosecutors have not complied with deadlines imposed by the judge for several months, like a detailed witness list explaining what type of experts the witness is and their qualifications. Okay, now I'm going to just switch over to some other notes, as well as referencing other notes from an article. I'll also put that down below. Now, here's what his attorneys have said. I'm going to be quoting this article, and again, I'm going to put it up, a little screenshot of it, but also if you want to read the full thing, which it's not a huge article, I definitely highly suggest reading through the whole thing. So I'm going to quote this article here. It says, "We feel very strongly that the court should dismiss the case." One of his attorneys said, "We really think that the court should take severe sanctions, including dismissal." Now, I'm going to keep continuing here from this article, because this part is very intriguing to me, before I offer some of my thoughts and opinions on it. So Wiston said prosecutors have mismanaged the case, including missing deadlines imposed by the judge. The lone attorney representing prosecution in person in court Thursday arrived at the courthouse more than 30 minutes late. Prosecutors have also not complied with deadlines imposed by the judge several months ago, detailing witness lists that were due this month. Okay, so pause there for a second. That's the part of this I'm going to read for this specific thing. So here's the thing that has me going, and we're going to get deeper into it a little bit here, but this is what's going on. Like, they want to dismiss the case, right? And even though I have my own opinions on it, and I've said this before, but I haven't said it in this video. So my whole opinions, my, bias that I bring to the case or whatever, is that I think that Barry Morphew totally had something to do with this, 100%. Now, also, everyone gets a day in court, all that stuff, right? So I'm not necessarily coming at it from like a legal point of view, more so than, a personal opinion, if that, makes sense. And we all got those. We know where the saying goes. So, but I mean, my whole thing is, I think he had something to do with it, all that. The case, when it started coming out, and again, I'll say this, circumstantially, and some of this evidence, how would you talk your way out of this, right? From my understanding, he has very good attorneys. Also, from my understanding, the case that the prosecution has is, strong, but not as strong as we thought it was, right? Like, they're gonna have to really dot their I's and cross their T's. So and we see this in other cases, right? We see where it's like, oh, they didn't get us this and they didn't get us that, and right? So this is nothing new, it is what it is. But what also has me nervous is okay, they show up 30 minutes late, they haven't provided this, and some of the other stuff we'll talk about. So this whole dismissal thing, which at the time of this recording, I'm not sure when you're going to watch it, but probably in the first week of March. What I'm getting at is, at the time of this recording, they have not spoken to those charges yet. They haven't, reconvened or whatever over it. But I'm starting to get how's this going to play out, right? So with that note being said, let's continue to read through these tweets here. And I'm just going to, again, switch over here to this my little tweet note page. So here we go. Here's the next one. Lauren Sharf. Barry Morphew next hearing is March 4th. 7 LE officers have been subpoenaed for that day. The credibility of a former CBI agent who worked on the Suzanne Morphew case will likely be discussed. The Fremont County Court will send out 1,000 jury summons. The trial begins on April 28th. Okay, so again, well, hold on. Let me pull my notes so I can read. Hold on. Please hold. Okay, here we go. Now, again, I'm going to be reading from this article. Again, it's going to be down the thing below. So here goes. Former CBI agent Joseph Cahill resigned from the Bureau in December amid an internal affairs investigation into the accidental discharge of a gun while he was off duty at his home. Cahill sustained a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the hand. Okay, let's keep going. In addition, Camper's memorandum, I can't say that word, states that Cahill lied to investigators looking into what happened. Quote, I find that he was intentionally misleading in his statements. I am actually more troubled by the links he went to in order to support the falsehood. This was written in a December 14th, 2021 memo. The CBI Internal Affairs investigation found that Cahill was attempting to remove a gun light that he owned from a CBI-issued weapon because he said he was planning to resign from the CBI that day. He bought a new gun light to attempt to cover his lie when he was interviewed by another CBI agent. Before admitting to the truth, Cahill initially lied on 4 occasions upon being specifically asked when he purchased the new gun light before correction. So there's that. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. They're going to be calling up all these witnesses. Here's this agent. He is calling a lie, right? So this isn't good, okay? Regardless about if he accidentally shot himself, whatever the thing is, these kind of situations are what give the defense room to poke holes in. And it also undermines the credibility. Obviously, if you can't trust these people, what they're saying, not all of them, the specific person, this isn't good, right? And it's my understanding that this person was handling some of the DNA stuff. Not handling it, but they had something to do with that. And we're going to talk about that here in a minute. So again, this is where I start getting nervous when you add up all of these things coming from basically giving the defense ammo, right? So let's keep going and then we'll keep talking. So please hold while I go to the tweet page. Please hold. Okay, here we go. Okay, so here we go. Lauren Sharf. In regard to the 3 DNA CODIS matches from Suzanne Morphew Range Rover glove box, remember there was that on the thing, prosecutor Mark Holbert said it doesn't have the weight it does that it had in August during the prelim. He said an investigation has ruled them out, but the DNA is still pending at the lab. Okay, there's that. So remember how the whole DNA thing was like, oh, this is a link to 3 different states, I believe it was, and known, people who have done SA offenses, things of that nature, that kind of a thing, right? So there's this whole DNA thing. And then you also have Barry's DNA situation going on. So the tricky thing with the DNA, obviously when you get into this, is the fact that, and this is not for everything, but specifically this is her husband, right? So his stuff's going to be everywhere. If the DNA evidence starts to fall apart, okay, or if it's not what they thought, or if whatever, this is another not so good situation. And it can go really, that kind of stuff could have gone both ways, right? The defense could have had excellent room for error, right? If they could prove hey, look, this could have been A, B, or C. You know what I'm saying? If the prosecution's coming back and saying, what we thought we had DNA, it's not working out for us. Again, another hole in their theory kind of a thing. So that has me worried. But we'll have to see kind of like what comes of that. Now let's switch over to our notes real quick, and then let's also, I want to see if I have any little notes here to read for this. Let's see. Okay, now let's go to our last little thing here. We're going to read our last tweet. Please hold. Okay, where are we at? We are at, here we are. Okay, again, Lauren Sharf, her tweets, and this is a quote. This is from one of Barry's attorneys. "It's not okay. His rights, Barry Morphew rights, are being violated by conduct in this courtroom," attorney Iris Eaton said. Morphew's defense would like the case to be dismissed altogether. Judge Ramsey Lama has not issued any sanctions on the prosecution yet. And there's that. Now let me just go back to my notes page. I know we're all over the place here. Okay, so we'll get to that in the Dateline episode. Okay. So we're on standby for this part, right? The more that I see that comes out, and again, if you watch my video on my main channel where I went through the evidence and talked about it, I personally think he had something to do with it. I think a lot of stuff points to that. But my fear is that he's going to get a defense team that can start poking major holes in the prosecution's theory. And then if the prosecution isn't dotting their I's and crossing their T's on a case like this, it makes me very nervous that they're going to come out and be like, oh, well, we're going to sanction this, or you're going to get this dismissed, or any of the above, right? So this is nerve-wracking for this case. And again, we're just going to have to kind of be on standby and see what happens. I'm very curious to see what the judge comes back with. Are there any sanctions? I mean, can you imagine if they dismissed the whole damn case altogether? But these are serious concerns. I personally think there's enough, but again, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a judge, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a cop, I'm not any of this stuff. Me looking at it from my point of view on the sofa, I'm like, well, I just think there's enough evidence already, circumstantially even, to be like, no, you couldn't ever throw it out because it's too damning, right? He also had a lot of really feasible excuses, but then some of the things you can't really excuse away, like the pings and things of that nature. So I don't know, but each time they go before the judge and they bring up this stuff with the prosecution, I'm just like, y'all are going to have to really, boom, 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 boom. Because I just feel like they're up against a really good defense team. Now let's switch gears for a second. Okay, so, and I'm going to put an article that talks about this specific thing down below. It's from People. But Dateline hosted another episode recently, and about the case and whatnot. They talked to people, and then they talked to Barry's sister, right? Now, if you look at the People article I put down below, if you want to just see her specific thing, it's there. Again, if you haven't watched it, whatever, it's, worth watching. Are you going to see any groundbreaking stuff? Not 100%. It is interesting to see the sister talk. So there's that. Do with that what you will. Now, specifically what they are talking about in this is they're talking about the night that it happened. And she's sitting here and she's like, oh, he was frantic. He was on the phone. He was on his way back. He was like, I don't know what's going on. And he was like all upset about her missing and so on and so forth. Now, she will also go into, basically one thing she says is she's like, these allegations that are all coming out, number one, sure, some stuff is true. Some stuff isn't. Some stuff is gray zone, whatever. But the stuff that's blatantly not true and gray zone is very harmful and hurting and all this stuff. Now, obviously, she's not going to go into all these dynamics of like, well, this is what's true and da-da-da-da-da. I mean, it's an open case, right? And it's her brother. Okay, so when she's sitting here talking and she's like, well, he was very frantic and he was very this. Here's my thing. We saw the video of Barry showing up to the scene, right? The bike and all that. The awkwardness. Again, I'm going to link my video that I analyzed that body cam footage below if you want to watch it. But that was one of my things. He's showing up and I'm like, I'm not buying this whatsoever. I'm getting fake crime vibes. I'm hiding my hand in my pocket vibes. We saw the marks on his hands. You know what I'm saying? It didn't seem authentic is what I'm getting at. Now, this is one thing that I think happens a lot of times with these cases is none of us ever want to think a family member would do things of this nature, right? None of us want to think we're related to a Jeffrey Dahmer, a Ted Bundy. You get where I'm going, right? Okay, so, or something, or Barry Morphew or Chris Watts or any of that, right? Nobody wants to ever think that. Oftentimes you see in so many of these cases, and this is one thing that I think is so psychologically fascinating about them, at least for me, is the fact that you can have people who are like, no, that was my brother, that was my father, that was this. I never would have guessed that they did blank. You know what I mean? And they could be like, doing crazy things out there, high amounts of bodies under their belt, but yet they had a daughter that just looked up to them, or a wife, or whatever. So I don't put too much weight when a family member is coming forth and they're saying, this isn't that person, and I don't mean to say that just completely negate it, because I don't. I take it into consideration. But then this is a prime example here where I'm like, well, we saw Barry and the BS flags were going off with a lot of people, right? A lot of people. Granted, there is the room for, well, we don't know how we might act in that situation, but there is very bizarre things going on. Him coming up with excuses, theories, all this type of stuff within minutes of arriving to the scene of them finding his wife's bike, which I'm sorry, I just felt like he had been there the night before disposing of it. It just had that total energy to it. So again, I wouldn't expect, I guess I would be weirder if the sister didn't come out and say anything or whatever, but obviously the daughters haven't said anything in regards to that. I mean, they fully support the father, right? So it can go one of two ways. I really don't expect his immediate family to not support him. I kind of put more weight into when we heard from like Suzanne's family and things of that nature. Obviously, they're going to have a certain feeling if they think this or that, but more of that rang true to me because they were looking at it more from an evidence point of view, right? And again, I come back to that, the evidence, all these things of that nature in this case, that it doesn't look good to me. So anyways, that's what I wanted to talk about with these updates here. Let me know what you think. Did you watch the Dateline thing? What do you think of the current case? Like, now that this is coming out more and more with the prosecution, how do you think it's going to stand up in court? Do you think they're going to dismiss the case, or whatever? I want to know what the damn Sofa Squad thinks. So again, remember to check out all the links below. Check out my other video to the other channel there. Don't forget to check out the other channels. And that's it. Thank you for joining me here on the damn sofa, and Roscoe too. And until we meet back here again to talk about whatever is popping off in the damn news, because it'll be something, I'll see you then.